of Orthodox spirituality.
Lord, have mercy, Lord, have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord, have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou, Lekea.
Hello, dear listeners. We are continuing to read from the book With Pain and Love for Contemporary Man, the first volume in the series, Spiritual Counsels, by Saint Paisios. Chapter 3, The New Generation. The spirit of sacrifice is missing. Most people today have not tasted the joy of sacrifice, and they don't like to work hard. Gone are philotimo and self-sacrifice. In their place are laziness, easy solutions, and much leisure. They consider it a grave achievement when they succeed without making an effort, when things accommodate them. Anything that gives them difficulty makes them unhappy. But if they were to face life spiritually, then the mere opportunity to struggle would give them joy. Everybody now, young and old, cares only for his convenience. Even spiritual people who aspire to holiness sometimes want to get there the easy way. Those who live in the world want to work less but make more money. Students want to pass their exams without studying and get their diplomas without ever leaving the coffee shops. They would even love to call from there and get their exam scores over the phone if that were possible. That is how far they go. Students come to my Kalivi all the time and say to me, "Pray for me to pass my exams." They do not study hard, yet think, "God will help me." "You must study and pray too," I advise them. "Both are necessary." "Why," they answer, "can't God help me?" They expect God to bless their laziness. That's not possible. Now, if the students study hard but have difficulty understanding, God will come to their assistance. There are some young people who have memory and comprehension problems but try hard nevertheless. God will help them become brilliant. Fortunately, there are exceptions. A young man from Chalkidiki applied to 3 university schools and was accepted in all of them with a first or second rank. In the past in Greece, it was customary for students to take entrance examinations for more than one university school. But he felt in his heart that the right thing for him to do was to get a job and relieve his father who was working in the mines. So he deferred his studies and took a job. Such souls are medicine for me. I am willing to die for them, to have them step all over me. Most young people, however, have been affected by the secular spirit and are in bad shape. All they know is how to take care of their own needs. They could not care less about others. They only think of themselves. And the more you help them, the lazier they become. I see so many insipid and disinterested young people today. All they do is judge everything and find all things boring. But they do not know that the heart never tires, nor does it get old. It is always young in spirit. Today's youth finds monastic life boring, and marriage scares them. Strong, healthy young men come to live on the holy mountain all the time, and then they say things like, "Oh, the monk's life is so hard, you must get up at midnight every day." So they decide to return to the world, but then they start wondering, how will I make a living in this society? What kind of a person will I be stuck with if I get married? Oh, it's such a bother, they conclude, and decide to return to the holy mountain. They stay there for a while, and then they start saying all over again, "It's so hard." Today's young people resemble new engines whose oil is frozen. The only way to start the engine is to get the oil warm. There is no other way. Many troubled young men, not just one or two, come to my Kalivi and ask me, "What should I do, Father? How should I spend my time? I am bored." "Find a job, my son." "I have money. I do not need to work," they answer. "But," I replied, "the Apostle Paul says, 'If anyone will not work, let him not eat.' 2 Thessalonians 3 verse 10. You must work in order to eat, even if you have money. Work helps a man thaw out the oil of his engine. To work is to create. It gives you joy and takes away your anxiety and boredom. So, my son, this is what you should do. Find a job that you like enough to at least get started. Just give it a try, and you will see the difference." On the contrary, there are some young men who love getting tired from work. They actually find rest in working hard. They get pleasure from it, and being tired, they find inner rest. But other young men come to my Kalivi and get tired simply by sitting. Still others have a lot of philotimo and ask me constantly, "Is there anything we can do for you? Is there anything we can get you?" I never ask for anything. At night I use a flashlight to do my errands, whether it is fetching wood to light the stove or straightening the place. Many of the visitors make a mess, leaving mud and wet socks everywhere. I give them the fine socks that I receive as gifts, and they throw away their soiled ones. I even give them paper napkins to wrap their socks in and dispose of them, but they leave them lying around. 3 times in my life I have asked for something. Once I said to a young man, "I need 2 boxes of matches from Caries, even though I had 4 lighters." I only did this because I wanted to make him feel happy. He got up and ran to Caries and returned out of breath to bring the matches. He felt tired, but he was happy because he had tasted the joy of sacrifice. But another fellow who was there at the same time was getting tired just from sitting around. Young people ask to feel joy, but joy will not come without sacrifices. Sacrifice gives birth to joy. Real joy comes from philotimo. Once we cultivate philotimo, then we'll have a real festival inside us. It is egoism and self-love that cause us pain. They are the cause of our troubles. 2 young military officers once came to the holy mountain. They told me that they wanted to become monks. "Why do you want to become monks? How long have you been thinking about it?" I asked. "Just now," they said, "we visited the holy mountain and thought of staying here just in case a war breaks out." "Aren't you ashamed of yourselves?" I asked. "Listen to yourself, just in case a war breaks out. And how will you manage to leave the army?" "We will find an excuse." What excuse were they going to find? They would probably pretend they are crazy, or they would come up with something else. "If this is your mindset and you want to become monks, you have already failed," I told them. Then there are those who have been planning for a long time to get married and start a family. But they come to the holy mountain and say things like, "Why should I marry? These are difficult times to raise a family." "Fine," I told one of them. "Did life stop during the time that Christians were persecuted? Weren't people still working and getting married? Or are you perhaps too lazy to get married?" "I want to become a monk," one of them insisted. "But you are easily bored. What kind of monk are you going to be? Monks work hard." Do you see my point? If a woman wants to become a nun because she is thinking, what's the point of staying in the world, of getting married and having children, headaches and troubles? I will go to a monastery where I will do what they tell me and have no responsibilities. And if they should reprimand me, I will just bow my head. Why bother having my own household? At the monastery, lodging and food will be provided. This kind of person is bound to fail. She will not last. Do you find this strange? There are a lot of people who think this way. You must know that a hard-working person will prosper with whatever he does. A man who works hard for his family would have made a good monk, and a monk who works hard for his monastery would have made a good family man. There was once someone who had joined a monastery as a novice, but did not want to be tonsured a monk. "My son, why are you still a novice?" I asked him. "Because the monk's cap reminds me of a helmet," was his answer. Can you believe this? This person did not want to become a monk because he did not want to wear a monk's cap. It reminded him of a helmet. When did he ever wear a helmet? Maybe he did a few times while he was training in the army, and he had not even gone to war. Listen to that. A helmet. What a thing to say. Why would such a person ever want to become a monk? How can someone who thinks this way become a good monk? The poor fellow finally became a monk in some other monastery, but he never wore the thick monastic cap. Another time, 2 young men came to my kalivi, and their hair was really long. I tried to give them a haircut, but they resisted, and since I was in a hurry, I only offered them a treat. At that time, I had a kitten. One of them asked me, "May I take it?" "Take it," I said. They left in the rain, one of them holding the cat in his arms, and headed for Iviron Monastery, which was an hour's walk from there. When they arrived, he asked if he could spend the night at the Archdiocese with the cat. That is not possible, he was told, and he ended up staying outside in the rain all night. If you had asked him to stay guard for an hour, he would have said, "No, I can't." But he was perfectly able to stay out a whole night holding a kitten in his arms. Another young man had gone to serve in the army. He left one day without permission and eventually came to my kalivi. "I want to become a monk," he said. "You should first go and complete your military service," was my answer. "But the army is not like my home," he replied. "Thank you for letting me know," I joked. "This way I can warn others about it." Meanwhile, his family had been looking for him. He left and a few days later returned early in the morning, on the Sunday after Pascha, the Sunday of St. Thomas. "I need to see you," he told me. "What do you want?" I asked him. "Where did you go to church today?" "Nowhere," he said. "On the Sunday of St. Thomas, when all the monasteries keep vigils, you did not go to church? And you want to become a monk? Where were you?" "I stayed at the hotel, where it's quiet." "I find the monasteries too noisy," he replied. "And what are you going to do now?" I asked him. "I am thinking of going to the monastery at Sinai, because I want to live a hard life," he replied. "Wait a minute," I said. I went inside and got him some fresh Easter bread, gave it to him and told him, "Here, take this soft Easter bread to help you start your hard life, and get out of here." That is today's youth. They do not know what they want and will not accept any pressure. How can they possibly make sacrifices for others? I remember in the army there were all kinds of urgent needs. Every time something would come up, the men would say, "Sir, let me go on this mission. This other man is married. He has children. It would be a pity for his children to be left without a father." There they were, asking the commander to send them to the front lines. They found joy in the idea of getting killed so that others with children would not have to die and leave their children without a father. I can't imagine anyone making this kind of sacrifice today. It would be a rare thing. Once we had run out of water. The commander located on the map an area where we could find water, but the guerrillas were there. "There is water somewhere near, but it is very dangerous. Who will go to fill some canteens? It will have to be done in the dark." One man came forward immediately. "I will go, sir." Another followed, then another. Everybody wanted to go. It was going to be a night mission, in the dark, a dangerous one. "You cannot all go," the commander said. No one thought of himself in that situation. You did not hear the men saying, "Sir, my foot is hurting," or "I have a headache," or "I am tired." Everybody wanted to go, even though our lives would be at risk. These days, there's a lukewarm spirit. There's no manliness, no sacrifice. We think with a faulty logic that has turned everything upside down. You see, in the past, men would go voluntarily to serve in the army. Today, they will do anything to get an exemption. They go to a doctor to diagnose them as mentally ill. They will try all kinds of tricks to avoid the draft. This was unheard of in the old days. In our unit, we had a 23-year-old lieutenant, young but very brave. One day his father, a retired army officer, called him. He said that he was planning to use his influence to have him relocated from the front lines to the rear. The lieutenant became really upset. "Shame on you, father, for saying such a thing. Only drones do nothing." His honesty, candor, and bravery exceeded all bounds. He was always the first to get to the front line. His greatcoat was full of bullet holes, but he was still alive. When he was discharged, he took the greatcoat with him as a souvenir. Indiscriminate love spoils youth. I have observed that today many young people, especially those who are of school age, are harmed by their own families. They are basically good children, but they have become useless. They don't use their minds. They are insensitive. It is their parents that spoil them. Many parents grew up with hardships, and they do not want their children to be deprived of anything. But they don't cultivate philotimo in their children so that they can find joy in deprivation. It's not that the parents don't mean well. After all, it may appear cruel to deprive a child, especially when he does not understand the reason for the deprivation. But parents must do what's right. They should help their children acquire a monastic form of conscience and rejoice when they do not have something they want. Instead, they are spoiling and stupefying their children with their indiscriminate goodness and generosity. These children expect to be served at all times. They will not even get a glass of water for themselves, supposedly because they are studying and cannot afford to waste any time. And they end up spoiled, both boys and girls. They expect to be served even when they are not doing their homework. And of course, it is the mothers who are responsible. "You go ahead and study, my dear," they say. "I will get you your socks and wash your feet. Here's your coffee. Here's your dessert." And since the children have never worked for anything in their lives, they cannot realize how tired the mother gets. Then they begin using disposable dishes, disposable clothes, eating pizzas, not even knowing how to wrap one in paper and put it in a box. Thus they become useless human beings for whom life is boring and tiresome. When their shoelace becomes untied, the only thing they can say is, "Mom, please tie my shoelace," and they just go on stepping on it. How can these children ever achieve anything in life? They are incapable of getting married or becoming monks. This is why I tell mothers, do not let your children study all day. They will become dizzy. Have them take breaks of a quarter or half an hour to do some work around the house. This way their mind will rest a little, and they will think more clearly. The bad habits that we see among young people today are carried over to monasticism. For instance, in one monastery, there may be 7 secretaries on duty, all of them educated. This includes the most senior and experienced monk. In the old days, there was only one secretary with barely 2 years of high school education, and he was able to handle the full load of work himself. And now, with 7 secretaries and help from the senior monk, they are all drowning in work and have no time left to carry out their spiritual duties. Directives from dark powers. Today, so many young people are being misguided, even destroyed by all kinds of ideas and theories. That is why so many are overwhelmed and confused. They want to go in one direction, but the current of our times takes them in another. Dark powers are pushing their propaganda on young people who have not yet developed good judgment. In schools, for example, some teachers say to their students, "If you want to develop initiative, do not listen to your parents, do not obey them." Words like these ruin young people. They no longer listen to their parents or teachers, and you can't really blame them because that's what they have been told. In order to develop initiative and independence, you shouldn't listen to your parents. And to someone who lacks life experience, this seems logical. On the one hand, there is the state, the government of the country, which often supports this kind of behavior. On the other, we have people who do not care about country and family. They give all kinds of insidious advice and take advantage of young people to achieve their evil ends. As a result, a lot of harm has been done to our youth. Some among them end up under the direct orders of the devil himself. Satan worship is widespread. One can hear people in clubs singing all night, "Satan, we adore you. We do not want Christ. You give us everything." What a horrific thing. Poor kids, what is it that the devil is giving you, and what is he taking from you? You see young men and women, adolescent youths, who have a wild look in their eyes from the many coffees they drink and the many cigarettes they smoke. You see that their eyes do not sparkle, that the glow of God's grace is not found on their faces. An architect was right when he said to a group of young men whom he was escorting to the holy mountain, "Our eyes resemble the eyes of spoiled fish." He had accompanied a group of 10 young men between the ages of 18 to 25 to the holy mountain. Having made a spiritual wrong turn in his own life, he understood and felt bad for young people who lived prodigal lives, so he convinced some of them to come to Mount Athos. I met them on my way down from the Kalivi. I said to them, "I am on my way out, so let's sit right here for a while." And we did. It was then that a group of students from the Athonius Academy happened to be going by. I invited them to join us, so we all sat together. The architect asked his group, "Have you noticed something here?" The young men were puzzled. Look at each other's eyes, and then look at the eyes of these students. Do you see that their eyes sparkle, while ours are like the eyes of a spoiled fish? And indeed, when I looked carefully at them, I realized that their eyes did resemble the eyes of spoiled fish. They were dull and faded, while those of the Athonius students glowed. The reason is that the youths from the academy prayed, made prostrations, attended regular worship services. The eyes are the reflection of the soul. This is why Christ said, "Your eye is the lamp of your body." Luke 11:34. So many youths come to the holy mountain or go to other monasteries and become monks. And despite the fact that monastic life is, what should I say, no piece of cake, one can see the joy radiating from their faces. But for so many who live in the world, life is sheer hell. They have everything they want, but their lives are full of pain. Various trends have come to us today from all directions. Hinduism and other occult religions have come from the East, communism from the North, various theories from the West. From the South, from Africa, we get magic and other forms of cancer. A young man wounded by such beliefs came to my Kalivi once. I understood that it was his mother's prayers that had brought him to me. After we conversed for a while, I told him, "Look, son, you must find a spiritual father so that you may go to confession, receive the holy chrism, and get some help to make a new beginning. You must be anointed again with the holy chrism because you have renounced Christ." The poor child was crying. "Father, please pray for me," he was pleading. "I cannot get rid of all these ideas. They have brainwashed me. I know that my mother's prayers have brought me to you." a mother's prayers can make such a difference. These poor children are destroyed when they become victims of manipulation. Then they panic, become anxious, turn to drugs, and go from one evil to another. May God help them. Yaroda, is it prudent to tell these youths that these are satanic things? Of course it is, but you must find the right way to say it. How can these youths come to know Christ? Is it easy for them to know Christ when, before they know anything about orthodoxy, they go to the gurus of India and stay there for 2 or 3 years? Then, after they get dizzy with all the magic tricks, they find out that there is mysticism in orthodoxy. So they come to us seeking to see the light and to have experiences of a higher nature. And if you ask them, how long has it been since you last took communion? They answer, I do not remember if my mother ever took me to receive Holy Communion when I was little. I then ask them, have you ever gone to confession? I don't care about confession, they reply. How can you get anywhere with these people when they do not know anything about orthodoxy? What must we do to help them, Yaroda? Well, it will not be easy as long as they see the church as the establishment. You must realize that it will be very difficult to find common ground with them. But young people of good disposition are helped, and in the end, they return to the church. Dear listeners, our time is up. Thank you for listening. We will continue once again where we left off in our next show. Until then, be well.
Shouting, proclaiming, and saying, Holy, holy, holy Lord of Sabaoth, heaven and earth are full of thy glory. Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who cometh in the name of the Lord, have mercy, Lord, have mercy, Lord, have
Readings of Orthodox Spirituality.
Lord, have mercy, Lord, have mercy,
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord, have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou, Lekea.